So he was tall, he was vicious, he was super intelligent, and he didn't like his mum. This is the story of me. This is the story of Ed Kemper. Welcome to Enter the Dark.
Don't touch me.
Hello and welcome to Enter the Dark. I am Jan. With me as always is Les. How's it going?
Oh, good, man.
Good. And also, special guest, Ed Kemper. You all right, Ed?
I'm okay.
Good.
Hey, Les.
All right.
You're my friend.
Don't. We're not there yet. So.
Les is scared of puppets, aren't you?
Mannequins.
He doesn't like them. But yes, welcome. Tonight is your video, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm really looking excited for it.
He's looking excited for it. As you can tell, look at that happy face and this little moustache. But can you jump down for a bit so we can carry on?
Okay.
Wave bye.
Bye.
There you go. You get down there. Suck Les off or something, I don't know.
Don't.
Right, yeah. But welcome to Enter the Dark. We are covering Ed Kemper tonight. But first of all, let us give a shout out to our patrons who give us enough money to say their name. It is Hannah Blue Harrington, Amanda Champagne, Astoria Crowley, Amy Emma and Jack Coleman, Sasha Johnson, Lisa Dempsey, Marie T. Jensen, Casey the Cannibal, Misty Day, Becky Louise, Izzy from the Clink. I hope you're feeling better, Izzy. She's had COVID.
Right.
Yeah. Jules Henderson, James Headington, Mr. Crow, Richard Beccarelli, Michelle Hudson, Alicia Llewellyn. She was like, I think you'll find it's Alicia.
Right.
It's your adopted daughter, that is. Alicia Llewellyn, Kooky Fenner, and Little Miss Mascara. Welcome to the Sick Fuck family. Thank you for supporting us. If you want to support us, you can do by going to www.patreon.com/Enter the Dark, and you can give us anything from $1 all the way up to $50. Anything really. You can go above $50 if you want. It's up to you. But you get cool shit, so it'll come through. But yeah, Ed Kemper. Now, Les, do you know much about Ed Kemper?
I do, actually.
Do you?
Yeah, this is what I know.
You see, Les isn't drinking tonight. He's given us cans of Pepsi. I don't know what's up with him.
Just going on the straight and narrow.
May have had an edible, but we can't confirm.
No, we can't. I wouldn't. I mean, that's a broad term, isn't it?
Edible.
Edible. Like anything's edible. Chicken's edible.
I don't know, because I brought a plant today and it said, warning, these plants are not for consuming. I mean, it was a rose bush, but there's not... Ooh. Police.
Well, you know what they say. Every rose has its thorn.
Like every night has its dawn.
Yeah.
Every cowboy sings a sad song. Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Right, so Edward Kemper, he was born in Burbank, California on December the 18th, 1948. He was named Edward E. Kemper III, and he was the second child for Edward E. Kemper II, who was Edmund Jr., and Clarnell Kemper. Now, he had a sister 6 years older and a sister 2.5 years younger. Now, Ed was close to his father, but E.E., as he liked to be called, double E. That's like
to the E.
Yeah, it's like Ed, and Eddie, where they had double D.
Yeah.
Double E divorced Clarnell in 1957 when Edmund was 9 and she moved with her children to Montana. It was a difficult separation for Edmund, nicknamed Guy by people.
Guy?
Like, hey, Guy. It's a terrible nickname, isn't it? Guy.
Yeah. Used to work with a guy we used to call I Guy.
Why do you call him I Guy?
Because, he had a horrific scar on one eye, and his eye used to weep.
Maybe that was because you were calling him I Guy and he was actually crying.
He did leave.
There you go.
Became a paramedic.
Did he?
Yeah.
Huh. Let's hope you don't have an accident and he comes up and he's like, oh, this cunt.
Well, I was going to say it's probably bad, but, if you weeped a bit, I don't know, it's a hygiene. It's fine. I'm not an ableist kind of person.
Yeah. Anyway, he claimed that to toughen him up, his mother locked him in the basement. Now, he would eventually provide several different motives for this behaviour, depending on who was interviewing him. Basically, his mother said, like he said, sometimes his mother would do it because she was scared that he was going to kill her and his sisters.
I mean, in hindsight.
I mean, he only killed his mother, but she kind of deserved it. Not victim blaming, but she's a bit of a bitch. He believed that he must have been a constant prickly reminder to his mother of his father. He hated her, but often spoke as if he understood her motives and behaviour. Now, in many different interviews, he described his fear and anger growing up, along with the things that he envisioned doing. In their new home of Helena, Montana, his domineering mother and sisters belittled him, and as he grew older, they banished him to the basement because they considered his sharing a room with his sister unseemly. Now,
unseemly.
He's a big lad.
Yeah.
He's a big lad.
He's a unit.
He is, yeah. So his ever-increasing size was disconcerting, even when he was a preteen, and Clarnell constantly reminded him of this. So this has got to be horrible, isn't it? It's like, oh, you're fucking huge, you big bastard.
Big.
Look at you, you lanky prick.
With your hopped-up pituitary gland.
Yeah. What you going to be? Tall, you knob. Right? It's something stupid to pick on someone for, isn't it? Being tall.
Yeah. Imagine that. Can you just reach for that for me, Ed?
Yes, I can. Yeah, I bet you can, you prick.
She uppercuts him in the balls. Fucking walks off.
Not that his parents didn't try. Indeed, both Edmund's parents were much more engaged in his upbringing and well-being than many parents were. But Edmund apparently was difficult. He was unduly afraid of being physically hurt by other boys and unable to sustain friendships with his peers. He was unable to put the pain of his parents' divorce behind him, and he tortured and killed animals, and he entertained fantasies, which combined sex and violence from a very early age.
That's a tick box.
Yeah. So he did say when he was in school, he was when he was in school, he was a chronic daydreamer, and he saw a counsellor twice during junior high school.
But was he a believer as well?
I don't know. And then that was very routine, and they didn't ask him a lot of questions about himself, and that was probably the most violent fantasy time that he was into. So if they would have asked him, maybe he would have told them.
Yeah. What are you thinking about? Oh, just fucking putting sellotape on a mouse's stomach and ramming it with my rod.
Yeah, right. So I'm going to hold this picture up. What do you see? It's a cat. Oh, a nice little pussy cat. Yeah, fucking hot. Sexy cat. I'm going to hog tie that cat and have me way with it.
Just split it. Make it look like a bleeding vagina. What?
I prefer Drunk Les. Drunk Les has got a filter. Jesus Christ. Stories from his sisters involve disconcerting memories. One goaded him to kiss a teacher, and he apparently said that if he did, then he'd have to kill her. His younger sister recalled that he often cut heads off to her dolls, and his mother apparently relegated him to the basement to keep him away from the girls because she didn't trust him.
Well,
her instincts were apparently right, though, and Kemper has said, I lived an ordinary person most of my life, even though I was living a parallel and increasingly violent other life. I mean, you can't... His mum was onto something.
Yeah. She had him pegged.
She pegged him.
Didn't peg him. She might have done.
Yeah. When he was 13, Kemper slaughtered his own pet cat with a machete and stuffed the remains in his closet, which his mother found. I was like, it's like I'm just hanging up this bastard's massive shirt, like, oh, fucking hell, Fluffy!
All spread eagled. This isn't a hat.
It's like, that's not what normal men have in the closet. Where's his porn?
That is my porn.
So Kemper also ran away from home that year to go and live with his dad. Now, he was pretty sure it was going to be a better life for him, but when he arrived, he learned that his dad, who'd remarried and had another son, wasn't quite as happy to see him as he hoped. Sort of like, so he's like, Dad! He's like, all right, Dad. He's like, his other son's like, who is that, Papa? It's your stepbrother.
Hey there, little buddy, don't touch him. Don't touch him.
Go hide the cats.
Hide the cats. And then you hide.
Quick, go hide Nibbles. So Double E welcomed him for a while, but then sent him back to Montana. But Clarnell was unwilling to have him because she was planning to marry her third husband, and this overgrown adolescent was a handful. So Kemper had given different versions of what happened next. Sometimes he says his mother sent him to live with his grandparents, and other times he said it was his father. But in one of his interviews, he said, I went to live with Dad, and he sent me up to Grandma. Now she's going to undo all the terrible things that my mother did to me. I'm going to be a showpiece. She's going to show the world that my mother was a lousy parent. I'm going to be a pawn in this little game. I mean, you're not, just no one wants you, really.
Yeah, you're getting pushed from pillar to post.
Yeah. So he was not pleased to be left at the farm with his grandparents when the holidays ended, but when he began school anyway, he seemed to make at least some progress. His teachers at Sierra Joint Union High School near Toll House, California found him quiet, rather meek in fact. He caused no trouble and made average grades and drew no undue attention to himself apart from his size, because he's fucking huge. It's going to be like, what was that, Billy Madison? You got Adam Sandler in a fucking little desk.
Yeah.
You're like, is this guy like undercover agent for the feds or something? It's like, no, it's just Ed. He's just big. At home with his grandparents, the situation was tense but bearable. They found him disconcerting and had his mother and father, but he kept busy and out underfoot with his dog and a .22 rifle. And that was given to him by Kemper Sr. Now, he shot rabbits and gophers and he shot birds, though he had been warned not to shoot birds. Right, don't shoot birds. He's like, okay, gophers, rabbits, squawk, birds.
I love how that was a specific thing. Don't shoot the birds, but the rabbits and gophers are fine. Why? I don't know.
No, they're digging up the gardens on the farm, aren't they?
Oh, good point, yeah.
Birds aren't.
Well, they could be eating the seeds.
Scarecrows are for. They've got something for that.
Yeah.
Gophers and rabbits, you can eat them. We're having gopher stew. Rabbit surprise. What's the surprise? It's actually a bird. But he managed to contain all his violence anyway to this one outlet. At the end of the school year, he returned to his mother and sisters and Helena in ostensibly to spend the summer, but within 2 weeks he was back at the farm. His mum's like, get back to that farm, you overgrown piece of shit. Now, upon his return, Maud Kemper commented that he had regressed. He seemed more sullen and more ominous, and now that he wasn't in school, he was ever present at the farm.
More sullen and ominous.
I mean, he's got to be bad for him that his grandmother's like, he's not even going to school, he's just here all the fucking time. Edmund found that his grandmother was a nag and his grandfather was a bore. His violent fantasies returned, this time starring Maud. He imagined her in the outhouse as he shot it full of holes. He lined her up unawares in the sights of his rifle and thought about what it would be like to kill her. As the tension at the farm mounted, his grandmother grew more nervous. She took Kemper Sr.'s .45 caliber pistol with her on at least one outing for fear it would fall into Edmund's hands. I mean, at least the women in his life...
They're switched on, aren't they?
Yeah, they kind of know what's going on, don't they?
I love that. Just like, I think I'll take this with me.
Yeah, just Edward's like, are you leaving the 45? No, I'm taking it. Why?
Robbers and shit.
In case of Indians, I don't know.
Indians?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
She's a big John Wayne fan.
Sure.
He was a big John Wayne fan, Ed Kemper was. He used to walk like John Wayne, do John Wayne impressions to the police in the bars.
Taking the 45. Oh, the Comanches.
Yeah.
The Comanches again, Grandma. Yes, Ed, the Comanches.
The Comanches are everywhere, Ed. Now, she had warned him not to touch the gun, but obviously did not trust him to do that as he was told. Now, Edmund took this lack of trust as an insult, and he brooded on it.
Oh, I bet.
All summer long, the tension grew. On August the 27th, 1964, Edmund sat with Maud at the kitchen table, going over proofs from a children's book that she was writing, called Grandma on the Farm, with the big stupid giant. Looking up, she noticed Edmund had an odd stare and a frightening look she had seen many times before. It unnerved her, and she told him to stop it. She's like, "Stop looking at me. Stop it." He said, "I'm just looking. Stop it, Ed. You big fucking massive knob." After a moment, Edmund picked up his gun and whistled for his dog, saying he was headed out to shoot some gophers. He's like, "Stop it. Come on, where are you going?" "I'm going to shoot gophers." I mean, that's scared, isn't it? She warned him not to shoot birds, and he returned her attention to her work. Edmund turned around, and upon exiting the house, he watched her through the screen door. Her back was to him, and he raised his rifle and took aim at her head. He fired once, and Maud slumped at the table. He then fired twice more, hitting her in the back. Inside the house again, he wrapped her head in a towel and dragged the body into the bedroom. Now, within a few minutes, Kemper Sr. returned home from buying groceries. As he began to unload the truck, Edmund took aim and shot him in the back of the head. Now, Edmund was dismayed, not only because of what he'd done, because he knew he'd get caught. He was like, I really shouldn't have killed my grandparents. People are going to know, because I'm not doing the farm work. This children book, it's got to be at the printers next week. I can't finish it. It's like, my chapter on fucking a cat, that was straight out. Didn't even make it to the editor. His grandparents weren't the sort to take off on a sudden extended vacation, so even if he hid the bodies, their friends and family would miss them immediately. Confused and fretful, he called his mother in Montana, who advised him to call the sheriff. Can you imagine that? He's like, "Hi, Mom." She's like, "Hi, Ed. What you doing?"
I've just killed my grandparents."
"Have you?" "Yeah." "Call the sheriff, Ed."
Okay. Do you miss me?
"No."
Can I come home?
"No, you're not coming home for a very long time now." He was taken in for questioning, and soon he confessed to both murders, saying he'd often thought of killing his grandmother, and that he killed his grandfather as an act of mercy, to protect him from seeing his dead wife and possibly having an heart attack. What a lovely man.
Yeah, compassionate.
Compassionate grandson.
It's all about compassion, isn't he, our Ed?
So it's like, why'd you kill your grandfather? Well, I don't want him to see his dead wife, have a broken heart.
It was a mercy killing.
He might have had a heart attack. He might not. He might have turned to you, Ed, and said, "Thank fuck for that, Ed. I fucking hate it.
Let's bury the body.
We'll bury the body. We'll feed it to the pigs, right? And we'll say that she went off and the Comanches got it because she didn't take the 45. We've got this, Ed. You go kill some gophers, because then we can say the gunshots were gophers." No. Could have all been different.
He could have made that all go away. But no. You didn't think, did you, Ed?
God damn you, Ed.
You and your compassion.
So Edmund was incarcerated in juvenile hall while California Youth Authority decided to what to do with him. They're like, "Yeah, but he's massive. He won't fit in our beds." A court-appointed psychiatrist diagnosed Edmund as paranoid and psychotic, and the Youth Authority committed him to Atascadero State Hospital. Yeah, whatever. Stupid names. He entered the facility on December the 6th, 1964, and he was not yet 16. Now, it was a secure facility, but it wasn't a prison. There were no guard towers, and the purpose of your stay there was treatment and not, paying for your crime kind of thing. So he took an extensive battery of tests and began to gain insight, if not into the nature of his own crime, but what others thought of the crime. Now, he didn't accept any actual responsibility for his crime, saying it had been beyond his control, but he worked hard at learning the language of treatment and appearing recovered. So what he was doing was he would listen to what they said and be like, right, so if I say this, they're going to be like ticking a box.
Right, I get you.
Yeah, so he's basically learning. You know, like we do in meetings at work?
Yeah.
Where we know what to say so we can make the meetings end quicker.
Yeah.
And we don't agree with it, but yeah.
But there's always some cunt who's got like that thing, isn't there? Just like, any more questions? And like,
yeah,
we've said our thing, and then there's some cunt who's always like, yeah, what about, and it's just like,
when they say any more questions, that's a no, we finished half an hour early, go get a brew.
Yeah. Don't prolong this misery.
So he worked in the psychology laboratory and he helped administer tests to the other people who were there.
Oh, good.
So he took pride in doing a good job, which the doctors interpreted as a very good sign. Like, oh, he likes doing a good job, learning all this.
Got him, the big, massive bastard.
So he'd been diagnosed as a sociopath, and apparently sociopaths were usually reluctant and uncooperative workers, but Edmund seemed eager to do his best. Meanwhile, he got to know others, including serial rapists who shared their stories of their crimes with him. The tales of their exploits made an impression, and his rapidly developing teenage sexual awareness became inextricably linked with domination and violence. Now, in the hospital, this kind of thinking seemed not perverse, but quite normal. His violent sexual fantasies became intricate and intense. He took note of what incarcerated rapists around him had done wrong. He was also given jobs around the hospital in the filing room where he would read the patient files and learn what the telltale signs were and how he could hide these. So basically now he's learning how to be the perfect rapist and killer. So he's like, so how did you get caught? Oh, I did that. Okay, so can't do that. And then he's literally in the filing room and they'd leave him in there for hours on his own. Like, Ed, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'll get all this work done.
What's he doing in there? Filing?
He's literally like, I'll sort out these files. And they're like, okay, thank you, Ed. And they're
He's
like,
just there.
He's there, like, reading the files, like, okay, so this is what they did. This is what they do. This is how they did it. This is how they got caught. So if I didn't do this part, I could get away. Oh, well, and he's like reading hundreds upon hundreds of files of murderers and serial rapists and all these things building up in his head. Because he is an intelligent guy, remember, he had a genius level IQ. So he's learning how to be perfect at this and not get caught. So they'd been caught, apparently, because they hadn't been smart. They left witnesses and evidence. They attacked women they knew, or they did their attacking in a public place. Quietly, he filed this information in a corner of his mind. Although he had yet formed any concrete plan, he knew each fact, each story would be useful to him later on. He didn't share these fantasies with his doctors, though. For them, he behaved and worked hard. He claimed religious conversion and took up looking up any biblical references that he heard. He was clean-cut and conservative, intelligent and sheltered, and when he was released in 1969, the changes that occurred in the outside world must have come as quite a shock to him. His renewed contact with the outside world began at community college, where, while he attended school, he was still under supervision of the youth authority. Now, Edmund was a square. He was.
Not a hip one.
No, he was just a fucking nerd. He said he called himself a bumblebutt.
Fucking bumblebutt. Yeah, I remember you telling me.
He's like, oh, I try to talk to girls, but oh shucks, I'm just a great big bumblebutt.
It's like, oh, fucking.
He does look like that though. If someone were to say they were a bumblebutt,
yeah, Kemper's
a bumblebutt.
Yeah.
Like he looks like a fucking psychotic giant Winnie the Pooh, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. So
I could imagine him getting stuck in a fucking tree stump or some shit.
Yeah. Well, you got to imagine this, right? He's come out, yeah. He's got his like nice little haircut, his glasses, his moustache, his like little shirt pocket protector, and all around him there's just hippies with long hair, going like, "Oh, fuck authority, man." And he's like, "Well, I just want to be a police officer." So yeah, he did want to be a police officer, but he didn't meet the minimum height requirements. Because he hit those, right? The minimum height. You're like, oh yeah. But he was too tall to be in the police.
Is there such a thing?
Yeah.
Really? That's mad.
He was too. They have maximum height limits.
Is that
because of like bikes and the cars and uniforms and stuff.
I was going to say, is it because they're like too intimidating? I mean, imagine sending Kemper out on the beat.
I know, yeah. So he couldn't get it, and he was too tall to be a police officer. So to assuage his disappointment, he brought a motorcycle. With it, he could at least feel like a cop. He's like going around like fucking Eric Estrada in Chips, like
with the fucking aviators.
Yeah. Meanwhile, he did very well in his studies, and after 3 months, he was paroled for another 18 months. His doctors at the hospital had recommended strongly he not be returned to his mother, who had relocated to Santa Cruz, California, because they were like, the thing that sets him off is his mother. Keep him away from his mum at all fucking costs. They think they fixed him. They're like, he's functioning. He's a functional workaholic. He's intelligent. Just don't let his mother get to him. But against that advice, the youth authority sent him straight to her.
So go to his mum then. No, don't send him to his mum. Send him to his mum.
Yeah. So Claudel Strandberg, as she was now known, having been married and divorced again, held a responsible position as an administrative assistant on the University of California at Santa Cruz campus. She was competent and well-liked, and the absence of her son had given her several years of relative peace. Apart from the ex-husband, obviously, because that they must have split up for a reason.
Yeah.
Maybe he was like a bit too tall. She went in, saw him standing on some step ladders getting something. She was like, Ed! And she divorced him. But verbal battles loud enough to be heard by neighbours began upon Edmund's arrival at the duplex of the suburban Aptos. She still harangued and blamed him, and Edmund would later claim that she hounded him relentlessly about matters as trivial as whether he should get his teeth cleaned. Yeah, clean your teeth, Ed. That's just a mother, Ed.
Yeah, that's just what mums do.
Yeah, brush your teeth. Often he sought refuge at the Jury Room, a local bar frequented by off-duty police and deputies. Now, he was still fascinated by the law enforcement and everything like that, and he spent all the hours discussing the merits and shortcomings of various sorts of guns and ammunition with the officers. He was respectful of them, and they referred to him as Big Ed. Now, he loved, the police loved him. They just thought he was like, I want to be a police officer. I'm too tall, though. And he'd talk to him, and they'd tell him about cases and stuff, and he'd be like, oh, right. And he'd do John Wayne impressions for him. He'd walk it, and I'd go, hey there, partner. I hear you're fixing for a drink. And they'd be like, oh, Big Ed. Hey, Ed. Having beers with him, just talking about, so what's the best gun to take? If someone's running, what's the best gun? Oh, yeah, but won't this one just explode the head? Oh, yeah, but you want this one for a leg shot kind of thing. And they're just like, he's just a nice guy.
He's just a nice guy asking weird questions.
Well, they're the cops, aren't they? They're just like, oh, yeah, he's not threatening. He's a big guy. He wants to be a cop. He can't be a cop just because he's too tall. And they're like, he's harmless. It's Big Ed. He's a good lad. He's a laugh. He's friendly. He causes no trouble to anyone, they're thinking. So he took various positions as a labourer and finally secured one with the Division of Highways, which enabled him to move out of his mother's home and into an apartment in Alameda, which he shared with a friend. Still, he said later his mother continued to berate him and belittle him.
Just phoning him off.
She's like, yeah, you're a disappointment! He's like, hello? It's like, hi, is Ed there? Yeah, I'll go get him. Ed, it's your mum. Oh, hi. Hello! So he quickly wrecked his motorcycle.
Oh, right.
Twice. The Division of Highways gave him time off to recuperate from the broken left arm after the second accident. With an out-of-court settlement, he brought a yellow Ford Galaxy and began to cruise the area. Now, he noticed young females out hitchhiking, which in the 60s
was a thing.
Yeah, everyone hitchhiked everywhere, and especially along the West Coast, and in 1969, and the hippies and shit, everyone would just hitchhike everywhere.
So it's almost urban legends. A lot of urban legends spring up around that shit as well.
Yeah,
Phantom hitchhiker.
Oh, I love them legends. When he looked them over, as he described in later interviews, he thought about the things he could do to them. Quietly, he prepared his car for what he had in mind. He placed plastic bags, knives and a blanket and handcuffs that he had acquired into the trunk, and the passenger door was rigged to keep it from opening from the inside. He had only to await an opportunity. For a period of times, he picked up girls and let them go. By his estimation, he picked up around 150 hitchhikers, any of whom might have been chosen for his plan. Finally, he felt the urgent inner drive of what he called his little zapples.
Little zapples?
Yeah, his little zapples in his head. They'd be like, oh, kill somebody, Ed. Cut her head off and then fuck it.
What a freak this man is.
You think? He's already fucking 6'9".
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
There's bigger wrestlers and shit there, aren't there?
Yeah, there is, but he's not a wrestler. He's a bumble. He's like, oh, I'm Ed Kemper. Oh, look at me.
You think he would have done all right on the territories? He should have gone on.
No,
he's a bumblebutt, isn't he?
He's a bumblebutt, man.
Jump off the high rope, Ed. Bump.
What? Do you want to stop talking about you? But we'll be nice to you, okay? You're a lovely man, aren't you? You like it. You like Les, don't you? You sleep in Leslie's bedroom, don't you?
Ed, you're getting very close to my gland.
Go back down, Ed. Go. It's okay, you just go back down here. Shh. Go back asleep. That's okay. Shh. Don't talk about him like that again. He doesn't like it. He'll watch you when you sleep.
Explains a lot, that does. That puppet stays here.
It does. So Mary Ann Pesh and Anita Lucchese were the students at Fresno State College, and they were hitchhiking to Stanford University after a couple of days in Berkeley. The girls failed to arrive at their destination. Their families contacted the police, but runaways were all too frequent using those days, and the girls had left behind no clues as to where they had gone, and so the authorities didn't really have much to go on. Edmund had dispatched Mary Ann and Anita soon after picking them up. After driving them around for a bit, he took out his gun from under his seat and pulled off into a deserted area. He put Anita in the trunk of his car and then turned his attention to Mary Ann. He handcuffed her, laid her across the back seat, face down, put a plastic bag over her head, and then attempted to strangle her with a length of terry cloth, and she bit a hole in the bag and the cloth snapped. So he's like, don't know his own strength. He's like, oh, this time. She's like,
broke it.
I can breathe. Frustrated, he pulled out a knife and stabbed her repeatedly. Eventually, he slashed her throat. He removed Anita from the trunk and then, with a larger knife, began to stab her. She fought and screamed, but he eventually wore her down. Now, he then drove around with the bodies in the car for a while, deciding what to do. Eventually, he brought Mary Ann's body into his apartment, where he undressed her and he had dissected her. He also beheaded Anita's body. Mary Ann's body was buried in a plastic bag he used to try to suffocate her, and later Edmund would lead the police to this site. He kept both of their heads for a while, eventually disposing of them in a ravine. On October the 15th, it's just like, they're beginning to leak. It's like, what? Get rid of him. On August 15th, the remains of a female head were recovered in an area in the mountains and identified as that of Pesci. Neither Anita's head nor her body were ever found. That's got to be a bit harsh, isn't it?
Yeah, that is shit. You got nothing buried there, have you?
No. No one suspected polite, clean-cut Ed Kemper of anything untoward, so he continued to prowl. On the evening of September the 14th, 1972, he picked up Aiko Ku, a 15-year-old dancer of Korean descent who was on her way to a dance class. She was tired of waiting for the bus and decided to hitchhike. Aiko caught on to his plan quickly and panicked. He convinced her that he was planning to use the gun to kill himself, and that if she didn't try to signal police or passerby, she would not be harmed. He drove her into the mountains and turned off the main road, parking out of sight. He taped her mouth and tried to suffocate her by putting his thumb and index finger in her nostrils. She fought but lost consciousness, only to awaken again moments later. He began to suffocate her again, and this time continued until she stopped breathing completely. He removed her from the car, laid her on the ground, and then he raped her. With her own scarf, he strangled her, and when he was absolutely sure she was dead, he put her body in the trunk and drove away from the scene. He stopped at a local bar and had a couple of beers, and after that, he went to his mum's house.
Nice.
Because, that's what you do when you've got a dead 15-year-old in the back of the car. From time to time, he would open the trunk and gaze at his conquest. Late that night, he brought Aiko's body into his apartment and placed it on his bed. He had dissected her just as he had Mary Ann and Anita, and he disposed of the head and hands in a different location than the rest of the body. Very little of her ever turned up, and her disappearance was not thought to be related to Mary Ann and Anita. 4 months passed since he got rid of her, and other victims of other killers were found in the Bay Area, and public concern was aroused. But Edmund was just under no suspicion at all for killings. Now, remember, this is when Herb Mullin's killing as well. So you got the Herb Mullin killings going on. and these ones. And they all think they've got one person. But it was like, there was somebody else killing as well at the same time. I can't remember the name. But there was 3 people killing in Santa Cruz all at the same time.
It seems a pretty popular area, doesn't it? Like, for that activity.
The thing is, before, they didn't really have much, it had crime, but it wasn't like murder capital. And then there was some of this shit. I'm telling you, my theory is like, in 60s, 70s, 80s, why have we got all these serial killers?
Mm-hmm.
Lead.
You reckon, like lead poisoning? Like
lead in the water, lead in the pipes, leaded petrol, all in the atmosphere.
It makes sense. That's got some traction. You should write a thesis on it or some shit.
I'm too lazy. So, on January the 8th, 1973, he bought a .22 caliber automatic pistol, even though he was forbidden to own a firearm because of his prior crime. But, it's America, isn't it? He's got a record, but nobody checks. He had no trouble with the purchase in spite of his record, but feared the police might catch on to the fact he was in illegal possession of an handgun. He stepped up his cruising and killing activities beginning that very day. He picked up Cindy Shaw and drove her into the hills near Watsonville, where he forced her into the trunk and shot her with his new gun. The bullet lodged in her skull, and Edmund had recently moved back in with his mother, so he brought the body back to the duplex and into his room there. When Clarnell left for work the next morning, he had sex with Cindy's corpse. He dissected her in the bathtub, taking great care afterwards to wash away all traces of what he'd done. He removed the bullet from her skull and buried the head in his mother's backyard. With her face turned up towards my bedroom window, and sometimes at night, I talk to her, saying love things, the way you do to a girlfriend or wife.
I mean, the rest is weird, but that in particular.
Have you noticed there, though, like how he took the bullet out, made sure he took the bullet out the skull, and he chopped off the hands and the heads, disposed of them.
Yeah, because it's getting rid of identification.
Yeah, so he's like, he's all the files he's been reading.
He's a clever lad. He's a clever lad.
He later threw the body parts, which he put in plastic bags, off a cliff. This time, however, the body was discovered within 24 hours. Dismembered arms and legs were found on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Then an upper torso washed ashore, which was identified via lung x-rays as shells. Eventually, a lower torso came in. A surfer also found her left hand, which offered fingerprints, but her head and right hand remained missing. The papers began talking about the chopper and the butcher.
Chopper and the butcher.
Yeah. Now, Edmund did take notice, but wasn't really worried. He'd been extraordinarily careful not to leave any evidence anywhere. Within a month, he was ready to kill again. On the night of February the 5th, 1973, Edmund and Clarnell had a monumental row, and Edmund stormed out of the apartment, keyed up and ready to strike. My mother and I had a real tiff. I was pissed.
Tiff?
Yeah.
He had a tiff. He doesn't quite.
I told her I was going to a movie, and I jumped up and went straight to the campus because it was still early. I said, the first girl that's halfway decent, that's who I'm going to pick up. I'm going to blow her brains out. He picked up Rosalind first and engaged her in conversation. In a short while, he stopped for another hitchhiker, Alice. She had no trepidation about getting in the car, with Rosalind already there, and the UC Santa Cruz parking sticker, which Clarnell had got for him.
Yeah.
That was already there. So she's like, oh, this guy works there and he's already got a girl in. So they rode for a while, and this time Edmund didn't even stop the car to do the killing. He drew Rosalind's attention to a lovely view off the passenger side, and as she looked, he slowed down, drew his .22 and shot her in the head. Quickly, he pointed the gun at Alice in the back seat and fired several times. Unlike Rosalind, she didn't die immediately. He shot her again at point-blank range once he got out of town, and then that finished her off. He pulled off into a cul-de-sac. He quickly transferred the bodies into the trunk. Now, he stopped for gas and then went to his mother's duplex, which he quickly left again, saying, oh, I need cigarettes. Once outside the apartment, he pulled the car to the street, opened the trunk and beheaded the bodies. The next morning, he brought Alice's body inside and had sex with it in his room. He also brought in Rosalind's head so he could remove the bullet that had lodged in it, as he had done before with Cindy's.
I'll do that after.
Yeah, I'll leave that there. I'm just going to shag this body first. He drove away from Santa Cruz to dispose of most of the body parts, then on to Pacifica to get rid of the heads and the hands. Now, Clarnell never seemed to show any suspicion that Edwin was up to such depravity, and she probably didn't suspect that she'd become his victim. But on Easter weekend, roughly a month after the killings of Rosalind and Alice, he decided the time had come to get rid of her. He waited all night in his room while Clarnell slept peacefully, carefully considering what to do. At 5:15 a.m, he got a hammer from the kitchen and went into her bedroom. He struck her once, very hard, and then slashed her throat. Within a minute, he had killed her and beheaded her, removing her larynx and put it in the process. He put it in the garbage disposal, but the machine spat it back out, which Edmund found darkly appropriate and not at all surprising.
It is kind of.
He's like, haha, you're not going to speak now. And it's like, bleh. And he's like, haha, even that doesn't want to speak to you. He's like, oh, I'm so lonely. He hid her body in a closet and cleaned up a bit and then left the house. That afternoon he pondered what to do and decided that if someone else was found dead with his mother, then suspicion might point away from him. Returning to the duplex, he called Sarah Hallett, a friend of Clarnell's, to invite her for dinner. He wasn't able to reach her immediately and fretted about his plan until Sarah called for Clarnell around 5 p.m. He made the invitation saying dinner was a surprise for his mother. When Sarah arrived, he strangled her, first manually and finally with the scarf he had obtained from Iko. He then removed Sarah's clothes and put her on his bed, and then sometime that night he attempted to have sex with the corpse. On April the 23rd, 1973, the Santa Cruz police received a call they couldn't quite believe. It was from a phone booth in Pueblo, Colorado, from a 24-year-old man who had eaten with them, drank with them, and talked with them for hours. Big Ed. Big Ed called up. And now what he was telling him was that he committed murder, in fact, a double homicide 4 days earlier, and then some. He'd killed his mother, Clarnell Strandberg, on Good Friday. Then he'd gone drinking with his cop buddies. He returned and invited his mother's friend, Sarah Sally Hallett, over for dinner and a movie. But then he killed her. He explained that after leaving the house he had driven for several days, he had dropped off one car and rented a green Chevy Impala, and then finally decided to turn himself in. He'd been taking no dose for 3 days and felt half crazy. He listed half a dozen other murders that he had yet to solve, referring over and over to the co-eds. He wanted someone to come and pick him up. He had 200 rounds of ammo and 3 guns in the car that scared him, and he was turning himself in.
The gun scared him?
Yeah, because he's been taking those, no-dose tablets, which is basically speed.
Oh, right.
For 3 days, and he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've killed all these people. And then the police officer who took the call was like, nice joke, Ed.
Good joke.
They seriously didn't believe him. They thought he was making a prank phone call.
Really? Fucking hell.
They literally thought he was making a prank phone call to him, like winding him up. They're like, yeah, Ed, okay, mate. Of course you did. So he suggested that the young man call again later. Kemper did so, but once again had a difficult time convincing the person at the other end of the line to take him seriously. Those who knew him believed it was all sorts of practical joke, because he liked playing jokes.
Yeah.
And shit like that. And,
got your nose.
Yeah, just imagine that though. You're trying to confess to all these murders, and the police are just like, oh yeah, okay, I'll
like
call
off
back
your
later.
tits on speed.
Yeah.
Like you're just getting more and more anxious. No, seriously.
So he placed several more phone calls until he was able to convince one officer to go to his mother's house and check. And they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to go there. And it's like, surprise! They're having a surprise party for him. He said that an officer, Sergeant Alufi, had been there not long before to confiscate the .44 caliber revolver he had purchased. Alufi didn't know where it was. Then Alufi did know and went to the home. As he entered, he smelled putrid odour of decomposition. When he opened the closet and saw blood and hair, he secured the scene and called in the coroner and detectives. To their amazement, they found the 2 bodies just as Kemper had described. Both had been decapitated, and Clarnell had been battered and apparently used for dart practice. Her tongue and larynx, Kemper said, were chopped up, having been placed in the garbage disposal because it spat them back out so they couldn't. Investigators now realised why the co-ed butcher had eluded them for so long. As
They're in plain sight.
As John Douglas, the Mindhunter guy, had put it, upon hearing how Kemper had been privy at the jury room and investigation details. So he was like, so what's going on with all these killings? And they're telling him everything. They're like, we've got no leads. Or if they were, yeah, we think we saw this and got there. He's like, oh shit, I know to change it. Yeah, so John Douglas said he was analysing what he was doing and learning to perfect his technique. He had discovered their strategies and plans for trapping him, and he was able to outthink and elude them. But he also had not come across as a killer. He had learned how to make people feel safe around him, and that was probably how he got all the girls into the car, because you look at him and you're like, oh, it's a big imposing guy. But like,
then he talks, I guess.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, he's just a, oh, you know, he's just a nice.
Big cuddly man.
Yeah, big bear. Oh, yeah, he's not going to hurt me.
Yeah, bears rip your face off.
So DA Peter Chang and a party of detectives travelled across 3 states to pick up Kemper, where the local police had placed him, and they found him waiting calmly for him. He's like,
Ah, detectives. I see you found my mother.
he seemed to know he was dangerous and unable to control himself, and understood that he needed to be locked up. He was willing to talk and twice waived his right to an attorney, though he would later say that he'd asked for a lawyer.
Billy bullshitter.
Yeah. So the story that unfolded was as bizarre as any they'd heard. He went on for hours and hours and hours on the way back, just confessing everything in the car. I bet they were like, shut the fuck up, Ed. He's like,
Oh, yeah, and then
I'd cut that. Ed, just shut up. We're going to put the radio on, Ed. It's like, sunshine, lollipops and rainbow. He's like,
everything is wonderful and happy when we...
Just tell us more about the co-eds.
Yeah. So just shut up, Ed.
Yeah, just shut the fuck up, Ed. So yeah, he started telling him about he killed 6 co-eds, his mother and a friend. Added to these murders of his grandparents years earlier, he had committed 10 murders in all. To prove his tale, he took detectives to areas where he buried or tossed parts of the victims that had not yet been found. He described having sex with the heads of his victims and said that he loved the feeling of totally possessing them and their property. The stories would grow worse during the trial thanks to psychiatric probing, and both sides set about finding out what they could do about this disturbing young man. Now, Ed Kemper was indicted on 8 counts of first-degree murder on May the 7th, 1973. The Chief Public Defender of Santa Cruz County, Attorney Jim Jackson, had defended Frazier and was... that's the other guy. Sorry, Frazier. He was the other guy who was going around killing people with Mullin and shit. He was also assigned to the Herb Mullin case as well. You know, the guy who Mullin said he didn't like him because he was all long hair.
Yeah,
that guy. He now took Kemper's defence, which he had offered an insanity plea. He had his hands full, especially because Kemper's detailed confessions, Sam's attorney had robbed him of any strategy except an insanity defence. But it was not easy since Kemper was so articulate and clear in the way that he planned and prepared for these fatal encounters. Nevertheless, he had once been diagnosed as psychotic, and despite the psychiatric records that pronounced him safe, he clearly had not been cured. For Jackson, there was hope that this defence could work. While awaiting trial, Kemper tried twice to commit suicide by slashing his wrists. He failed both times, because you're fucking shit, Kemper.
It's like you can dissect a body, but you can't even fucking cut your own wrists.
You remember, go down the tracks, not across.
Yeah.
The trial began on October the 23rd, 1973, and 3 prosecution psychiatrists found him sane. Dr. Joel Ford had looked at Kemper's juvenile records to examine the diagnosis that he was then psychotic. He interviewed Kemper at length, including the truth serum. Under truth serum. So they give him the sodium pentothal, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And told the court that Kemper had probably engaged in acts of cannibalism. He apparently cooked and ate parts of the girl's flesh after dismembering them. Nevertheless, Fort decided he had known what he was doing in each incident and was thrilled by the notoriety of being a mass murderer and had been entirely aware that he was wrong. That was good enough to find him sane. California relied on the McNaughton standard for sanity, which was used throughout most of the country. According to the wording, the standard that a defendant might be found insane if, by reason of a disease or defect, he did not know what he was doing wrong. Kemper clearly did know that the acts of murder were wrong. He had also shown clear evidence of premeditation and planning. One defence psychiatrist was willing to testify to insanity based on the product standard, which allows someone to say crime is the product of a diseased mind, which is a subtle difference, really. But that was not within the state's definition. Kemper's younger sister described the strange acts she had seen her brother do, trying hard to show that he was abnormal, while Jackson fought valiantly through cross-examination to get the prosecution's experts to admit that many of the things Kemper had done with the victims were clearly abhorrent. Now, they did, but generally stuck with their original evaluation. They also questioned Aztecadero's staff's diagnosis of Kemper when he was 15. Having a lively fantasy world was not necessarily psychotic, apparently.
Well, it's not, is it?
No.
Really?
I mean, Kemper then took the stand on November the 1st, and what the jury thought of this man who had so easily killed is not on the record, but they had heard large portions of his detailed confession and already knew what he had to say for himself. He discussed what he knew about his mental state and tried to convince the jury that he needed to possess a woman, and his acts of necrophilia were clear indications of an unstable state of mind. He had already told his interrogators that he felt remorse, that he'd taken to drinking more and more and more to relieve the pressure. I'm glad you're sober. But he had also described the sexual thrill he achieved from removing someone's head, and he said that killing was a narcotic to him. He also described the feeling that he had two beings inhabited his body, and when the killer personality took over, it was kind of like blacking out. He indicated that the same thing had happened when he'd shot his grandmother. The trial lasted less than 3 weeks. How many of his outrageous admissions were actually true is anyone's guess, and while Kemper had admitted to cannibalism during Dr. Fort's analysis, he later recanted that, claiming it was meant for an insanity defence. So he was like, I was only saying that to be insane, but now you've declared me sane, I didn't eat him.
I like it. Just for clarity's sake.
Yeah, just to let you know, I didn't eat him. Okay, I'm not a monster. Okay, yes, I decapitated them, fucked their heads, brought in their body, shagged their bodies, and then cut them up and dissected them and all that. But I didn't eat them because that's just wrong.
See, we've all got a line.
Yeah, we've got a scale here. Cannibalism, not me. On November the 8th, a 6-man, 6-woman jury deliberated for 5 hours before finding Kemper sane and the guilty of 8 counts of first-degree murder. Although Kemper had hoped to receive the death penalty, he was convicted during a time when the Supreme Court had placed a Moriarty on him. A moratorium on capital punishment, and all death sentences were commuted to life imprisonment. The death penalty became applicable only to crimes committed after January the 1st, 1974. He missed out.
Yeah.
Now, the judge asked him why he thought what his punishment should be. It wasn't difficult for him to come up with something, as he'd been thinking about this moment since childhood. Because you do that, don't you?
Yeah.
You think about what punishment you should have for murder when you're a kid. He told the judge he believed he ought to be tortured to death. And they were like, no, can't do that. We can't do that. Well, maybe in Texas, but not here. Instead, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. He was sent to the California Medical Facility in Vacaville, north of San Francisco, for observation, and he ended up at maximum security at Folsom Prison. At one point, he requested psychosurgery, which involved inserting a probe into his brain to kill brain tissue and potentially cure him of his compulsive sexual aggression. His request was denied. Possibly because authorities feared that he might then petition for release. He'd be like, "Oh, I'm cured. Why aren't you doing this for everyone?"
You stabbed me in the head a lot, and now I'm good.
He also became a model inmate.
Oh, it was showcased on Mindhunter.
Yeah, and you can still get these. Yes. He used to read books for the blind, so there's audio books out there of Ed Kemper reading them.
They weren't just little girls. They were now little women.
But when he went before the parole board, he told them that he was not fit to go back into society. He's like, I'm not fit. I've still got all the Dickens do for these blind people. In prison...
The complete works of Dickens. It's like... That's tickled me, that is.
Now, in prison, he is reported to be cooperative and kind and would like to forget his past. While he readily participated in requests for interviews and self-examination, hoping he would help people to learn about people like him, he often disliked what some of his interviewers later said. Kemper is among the serial killers who have freely offered an extravagant amount of detail about his crimes and fantasies. Despite how disturbing his revelations are, we can be grateful that we know more about developments of a sexual predator from his accounts. So, that was Ed Kemper. But, there's a little bonus present for everyone. Here's this. So yes, hello, your bonus prize. Eddie and Herbie. Yeah, high five guys, come on. Yeah, you like each other now, don't you? So, Ed Kemper and Herb, you had to spend time together in prison, didn't you?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Now, apparently, Ed, did you want to kill Herb?
Yes.
You wanted to kill me?
Yeah, well, why was that?
Well, there was a time that I thought it would be a good solution for everyone. It'd be good for society and save everyone a bundle of money. It's better sending thousands of dollars to lock up the two of us for life and protect people from us.
So, you told investigators and psychiatrists that you thought you'd kill again, didn't you? And you also admitted under cross-examination that you had fantasized about killing thousands of people, didn't you?
No, I figured that if I killed Herbie over here and then they sent me to the gas chamber, it would be a good solution to a problem. I knew I'd never get a chance though, and I don't have any intention of killing him or anyone else.
No.
No, go on. So you two were next door neighbours, weren't you, in the cells? Yeah, you were next door neighbours. And you didn't like him, did you?
No, I didn't like him when I first met him.
No, why didn't you like Herbie? What was he doing to you?
You're a no-class killer, Herb.
That's a bit harsh, isn't it, Ed? You know?
Were you starting to crying and shit? Oh, come here.
Oh, well,
All he kept doing was singing in a high-pitched voice.
It's all right. It's all right.
okay. Herb, did you come here? Let's get your hair out, guys. It's okay. Now, did you sing in a high-pitched voice, Herb?
No.
Can you give us a song? Can you sing Ave Maria?
Ave Maria.
Okay, so when he was doing that, what did you do?
I splashed water on him, like this. Imagine we had water, I just go... spray him with water, like a dog. And then he stopped singing.
Okay, but what happens if he was good?
Well, this.
These.
Yeah. Peanuts. You like peanuts, don't you, Herbie? Do you want some peanuts, Herbie? Here you go.
Do you want me to just put them in there?
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. He just swallows them whole, doesn't he?
Yeah, he loves peanuts.
And so that's how you trained him?
Yeah. Yeah. It's behavioural modification treatment, Ed.
Why'd you keep looking? No. No.
But Les, I could train you.
No.
I'll get him tonight.
Okay.
So, do you want me to tell you what really sticks in my craw?
What? Go on, Herb. Ed. He's Herb. Ed. Go on, tell me. What sticks in your craw?
He only got 2 first-degree murders, and I got 8.
Yeah, but you did murder 8 people.
It's not a competition, Ed.
Well, yeah, it is. You got 2, I got 8. You're just a cold-blooded killer who went around killing everyone in sight for 3 weeks. Mine was planned. And also, I killed my mother because she was a bitch.
Yeah, but also, he technically can't disprove this, but technically, Herb, you did stop a big earthquake, didn't you?
Yes.
He did.
Maybe he did.
He did, Ed.
You can't, Ed. You can't. The earthquake didn't happen and he'd kill people. I'm not saying he was right.
But you can't falsify it. It's unfalsifiable, Ed.
That's conjecture.
This is conjecture, but prove he didn't stop the earthquake.
Do you know how clever I am?
I know.
I'm genius.
You keep saying, don't he, Herb?
But
Don't take that shit off him.
It's just, come on, you two.
Come on. Come
No arguing. I told you, no arguing.
Back-
Or you go back in the bags, don't we?
off. Back.
Don't want to go in the bags, do you?
no.
Okay. So yeah, that was Ed Kemper. And special guest appearance for him. You two shake hands now. Come on, shake hands. Good boys. Good. They'll be back soon in their own show, won't you?
Yeah, we will. I'm going to be singing songs.
No, you're not going to be singing.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
No.
Yes, I am.
What song are you going to sing?
Institutionalized.
By Suicidal Tendencies. That'd be bitching. We can do that. I can do that.
Really?
Yeah. If you want to rap it, I'll do it.
Okay. All I wanted was a Pepsi.
Good lad. Yeah, so thank you for joining us. This was Ed Kemper. That's Herb Mullin. I'm Jan. That's Les. Let us know what you thought of this one. If you do like us, please like, share, and subscribe.
Do it, bitches.
Yeah, do it, please, because otherwise, you won't get to see more puppets, and that's the fun. Also, remember, you can catch us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Email us at enterthedarkpodcast@gmail.com. If you do like what we do and you want us to make more puppets, because these were really expensive to make, thank you to my wife for making them for us. You can head to www.patreon.com/enterthedark. Yeah, Enter the Dark, and you can just pledge to us.
Give us your money. We want the money. Get back, Herb.
No. Not. We ask, we don't beg.
No egg sandwich for you.
We're not e-begging.
No, we're not e-begging.
No e-begging.
Just yet.
That comes later.
But you do have to feed my drug and alcohol habits. So.
Yeah, Leslie's got a drug habit now, so.
Yeah.
He has.
I'm escalating.
It's going through. But yes, thank you for joining us. I've been Jan. He's been Les.
I've been Ed.
You're not going to say your name, Herb?
I've been Herb Mullins.
Your voice has changed. You were high-pitched 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, okay. Don't do the Triple H Kofi Kingston thing on me.
You're Jamaican. What happened to you? Anyway, take care. Goodbye.
See you later.